Okay, so I've decided to put together a small, brief tutorial about the metric system. I understand from some students that some of you are still having a hard time grasping the metric system. I totally understand that. Been there, done that. It's not the easiest thing in the world to work with initially, but once you get it down and get a good understanding of it, it's not that bad at all. So I'm going to show you a trick. Professors hate tricks. So let's think of this as a stepping stone to get you more comfortable with understanding how the metric system works. Okay? So we all know that the prefixes that we're going to be using this semester, kilo, hecto, deca, then you have your base, unit, which is one of whatever it is you're dealing with. This could be meters, this could be liters, this could be grams, could be other things too, but for the sake of this discussion, we're going to stick with those three. Then when you start getting into the fraction side, the decimals, smaller units of measurement, we have deci, centi, and milli. Okay. What I'd like for you to do is, if you have to write this out on a piece of scratch paper before your test, I'm sure your instructor will allow you to have scratch paper. Draw this chart out exactly like this and put a decimal point to the right of each of these prefixes and units of measurement. Okay, so that begins. Now we have our template by which we can start manipulating various facets of the metric system. So let's say we want to know how many meters in 1 kilometer. Okay, what I want you to do is to take, okay, so your numeric value is 1 kilometer. That's our starting point. What do we call that? That's our given information. That is the beginning of the problem. I want you to take 1 and put it directly under kilo, okay? Because this, we're keeping it in line with the decimal point on the kilo portion of the column, okay? Now, what are you trying to get to? Kilometers is your given, and your needed information is meters. Where is meter? Meter is a base unit, just like liter or gram. So draw yourself another decimal point under the base unit, okay? And then simply go over. Don't skip any decimals along the way. 1, 2, 3. Fill those in with zeros. Get rid of your original decimal point. Now we realize that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. Pretty easy trick, right? Let's do a couple more. Let's start with a very small measurement, and let's work in the other direction just so we can see the practicality of how it works for both ends. So let's say that we need to know, let's say that we have 265 milliliters, and we need to know how many liters is equal to 265 milliliters. Okay, so 265. That's a whole number. So you're going to put your decimal point under the milli column in line with the milli decimal point, and then you're going to fill in the appropriate number of spaces, 2, 6, 5. Okay, so now we can clearly see 265, of course, it's assumed to have a point decimal there, right? to 65 milliliters in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this 1, 2, 3 until we get to the base unit, because you're wanting to know how many liters. Liters is a base unit of 1, okay? So we've come over 1, 2, 3 decimal points. We're going to get rid of the original decimal. So now we know that 265 milliliters is equal to 0.265 liters. Pretty simple, correct? One thing I will caution you about is some professors, if not all of them, kind of consider this a trick. I had one of them tell me it's like giving somebody a spark plug wrench to work on a car when they really need the whole socket set. Okay, so I've talked to them about using this method. If you're having trouble understanding, they're okay with it as long as you're able to take this conversion chart that we've built, and you've got to be able to write down your conversion factors that you create. So take this problem, for instance. We found that 265 milliliters is equal to 0.265 liters. We're not done. We need to be able to 265 liters is equal to 265 milliliters. Okay? This is a conversion factor that we created. But if you are doing conversions, metric to metric conversions on a test, you're going to need to know you're not going to use 0.265 to 265. Chances are you're going to be dealing with 1,000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. And a lot of professors, like I said, if not all of them, are going to make you show your work. So if you can't show how you extracted the information from this and made an acceptable conversion factor to use in your problem, in your setup of your problem, then that could be problematic. So let's talk a little bit about how we use this method to get from there to there. Let's suppose it's test day, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't remember, are there 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter, or is it 100 milliliters? I just don't know. I don't like the metric system. It's bogging my brain down. You're not sure. You think that's right, but you're not sure. So if you want to double check yourself, let's take 1 liter. Okay, that's going to be the base unit column, right? 1 liter. Now we're going from liters to milliliters. 1, 2, 3. So fill in the zeros under each column. Get rid of that original decimal. So we see, in fact, that 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. So now, not only have you used this chart, this template, in order to figure out how many decimal points you needed to go either way, but you've also verified that you can create a correct conversion factor out of it. So my point to you is that understand how to lay this out and how to be able to write this on test day, and then you can take this method. Let's do one more that way just to make sure that we understand. Okay, so how many grams are in 1 kilogram? Geez, I'm not sure. It's 100,000, is it 10,000? I can't remember. So 1 gram is equal to how many kilograms? Well, I'm going to need to use that conversion factor in one of the problems on my test, but I'm not sure if it's right, and I don't want to be off by a factor of 10, because that's going to cause me to get the question wrong. And there's only 10 questions on this test. I get 1 wrong, and I'm automatically down to a 90. I get another one wrong, and I'm darn near failing already. So I'm going to take this information, and I'm going to make sure then I understand how many grams are in a kilogram. So we're starting with given information. 1 base unit, gram is a base unit, right? What are your base units? Gram, liter, meter, okay? Always start with those if you can, okay? So we have 1 gram. We need to be in kilograms, which is all the way over here. This is where we want to wind up. So we're going to that decimal, to that decimal, to that decimal. So we fill in the spots, everything that has an open spot underneath it with a 0. And it turns out we only needed 2 zeros because 1 fell under the base unit, a 0 under deca, a 0 under hecto. And if you want to put a 0 out here, that's fine. You can do that. But as long as your decimal point of where you're wanting to wind up is even with your decimal point of where you started. So now we're going to get rid of this decimal point, the original decimal point we started with, and we've determined that 1 gram is equal to 0.001 kilogram. So 1 gram is equal to 0.001 kilogram, or could also be stated as 0.001 kilogram is equal to 1 gram. Now you have created a conversion factor that you can plug into your problem, and your instructor will be able to say, well, okay, they had to use this method to get to the conversion factor, but the conversion factor was correct. They were able to show their work on paper and show how they got from point A to point B to point C, and I'll accept that. So that's the kicker. I've talked to the professors. As long as you can prove that you knew how to get from A to B to C in your problem as you set your problem up, it's okay to use this as a method to double check yourself. So I hope that helps a little bit. If you still have questions after looking at this and say, well, I still just don't get it, send me a message. And I'm going to post this to YouTube, by the way. And send me a message, and maybe you can call on the phone, or we can Skype, and we can work on it some more person to person. So hope this helps. Thanks very much.